Okay, so that's the plan then. Alright. Ademan, since you're the one kind of leading the groups, roll a 1d20 for me, just a straight 1d20. I'm gonna see if you get caught in them out in the open when things begin. Alright, so Ademan, you have just led a group of women and children out of the city gates. The entire time, like for the next few hours, even into nightfall, you are moving people as quickly as you can in groups out through the city gates and sending them off into the wilderness, I guess. Unless you have like a specific plan for where they're going. There's a nearby village you can tell them to try and go to. With a small fort. Yeah. So you send them to the nearby... Yeah, so you send them to the nearby village with a fort. Meanwhile, at nightfall, a letter does arrive. It is sent by a small bird. Actually, wait, let me see. Sorry, not a bird, a bat. A bat sends it. That's what I meant to say. Sent by a bat, and it's dropped off in the hands of the knight himself, who is confused as to why a bat is delivering it, but he takes the letter, and he reads it, and he looks at the whole massive crowd of people that's standing before him. He folds the letter back up, puts it into a small pocket of his armor, stamps his halberd down, and takes a step aside. He looks over at everyone and says, "You may all enter."
That doesn't fill me with confidence. I feel like I'm something that's dying inside now.
Well, regardless, I imagine you begin letting people in. Alright, you do. As you do, the knights are going to come out and begin lining the gates to make sure nothing can come in. None of the Kuo Toa can come in. Nightfall comes. People are being herded through the city gates and through the tunnel beneath the Ashgate Manor. But this is a city of several thousand people. Tens of thousands, even. Probably more. This is like one of the largest cities in Davorsk. This is not an easy evacuation. It is not something that will just take you a little bit of time. Throughout the entire night, you are moving people through both passages. And still you have at least a few thousand still to go by the time the sun seems to be rising. The first rays of dawn begin to peek over the temple. You can see it glistening off the stained glass windows of the main temple. And with it comes a panic. The people know what the dawn brings, and they begin trying to move even quicker. Ademan, you are on your way back to Ashgate Manor when you hear the first thumping of staffs. And it seems to be coming from all over. Hiccup, wherever you are, you will probably notice that there are archers posted at various points around the city, all of them wearing that same dark armor that Osir intends to wear. So his friends are here, in the shadows, ready to fight. But there's not many of them. The guards are posted at various points throughout the city as well, with barricades ready. They spent all night setting up barricades throughout the city. and there are guards posted everywhere. Most of them centered outside of Ashgate Manor, but with thousands of people, they are taking up the entire street and some of the nearby alleys and such, and there are guards everywhere there can be, but it's still not an easy thing to contain. Edaman, you are passing the temple on your way back to Ashgate Manor when you hear those thumping of staffs. And then you hear the howling and the screeching. And then you hear clanging and things breaking and being overturned, and you see things breaking through the windows. It's like stones being thrown through the windows of the temple. And then the doors burst open. Hundreds of Kuo Toa are now swarming out of the temple into the city streets. And you can see them begin going into every building nearby, breaking down doors, looking for the people. And whenever they don't find anybody in this street, Edaman, they're eventually going to start making their way to Ashgate Manor. And you can hear this commotion throughout the city. They are coming out of various points in the city. I imagine at that point you rush back to Ashgate Manor. Yes. At Ashgate Manor, the people are being herded into the manor as quickly as they can. There's no more chance of getting to the city gates, so everyone is being pushed through the manor, yet through every door that they can fit people through to get to the tunnels. The personal militias of every noble family are ready. The city guard, what's left of it, is here. The knights of the guard of the manor itself are here. The rangers that Ocean had called in are stationed all around the city. And fighting begins throughout the city. At the barricade set up, you can Edaman, as you are running through the city, you can see fighting beginning to occur throughout the city as Kuo Toas try to swarm the various barricades, and the guards are trying to hold them off best they can. And to be sure, the guards are stronger and better trained than the Kuo Toa. All of these guards are better trained, better equipped. They can fight off a few Kuo Toa, each of them. But it's like trying to stop a tidal wave at this point. They are just flooding the streets. It does not take too long before that wave hits Ashgate Manor. And it is at that point, I imagine, that all of you begin doing what you can to defend these people. Hiccup is up at a perch, firing his crossbow down into people. Edaman, what would you be doing during this? Alright, so Edaman, you are near one of the barricades. We'll say you're at like one of the southern barricades right across from the manor itself, in one of the alleys, where there's just a flood of Kuo Toa pushing against the barricade, and you are there cutting them down as much as you can. Hiccup plays, I don't know if you guys saw him, but he's up at the post, up on one of the buildings, firing crossbows down. And the Kuo Toa don't have much in the way of ranged weapons, but they do have a few spears and slings that they're using to try and fight at a distance. So every now and then, Hiccup, you will have to kind of dodge a spear getting thrown at you. Isaac, you are healing as much as you can with magic and healing kit. So you are like kind of all over these barricades trying to heal whatever soldiers you can, then I'm guessing, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Alright, you will do what you can in that regard. You will notice very soon it's not just soldiers that are being brought to you because they're being wounded. The slower people in the group are also now being, at various points, are also getting attacked now. The civilians are getting caught in this crossfire. Not as many as there would have been had you guys not acted quickly, but there are people getting caught in the crossfire. Kindness, what are you up to currently? Alright, so you are focused on crowd control, trying to get people through quickly and safely. Alright, good. You do so. It's not an easy task, and there are several points where it feels like the crowd is trying to pushing against you as well, and you almost get caught up in the trample, but you do manage to help herd people as much as you can. Mm-hmm. Miles. You are blowing up cars, it looks like. Is that about right, Miles? Oh, Miles typing. You guys can use whatever spells. I'm not going to count any spells you use here right now because this is just a horde. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that right now. Trust me. So Miles is just blasting. Miles is just blasting. Miles has Dakarl out and is blasting. Skullcleaver, how about you?
Okay, so I would like to
You go into a rage.
okay. Now something else.
Yeah, you don't have to like give yeah, you don't have to worry about specific mechanics right now, Skullcleaver. Give specifics. You can just give an idea of what you're doing.
Yeah, but this is how I'm gonna know what's gonna happen.
Oh.
Because it's I'm assuming it happens automatically once it rains.
Mm-hmm.
Turning Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
When a creature hits you with an attack roll before your rage ends, the creature takes 1d6 force damage. No, perfect. So I have a Super Saiyan aura.
All right, perfect. So you are just beating up Kuo Toa now. All right. And so it goes. By the time the sun has reached its peak above the temple, most of the city has gone through. But there's still at least a few hundred left to go, and the Kuo Toa are not letting up. In fact, despite the best efforts, they are pushing the guards back more and more. The guards are trying to do the best they can to hold the Kuo Toa back, at least until people get through the manor. But there is only so much they can do against this seemingly unstoppable tidal wave here. And it looks like at any moment the Kuo Toa will break through. If a single one of these barricades fail right now, the Kuo Toa will just swarm the people that are left. That's the point you guys are at right now. The guards are doing the best they can. The militias are doing the best they can. The knights are doing the best they can. And the rangers are as well. And all of you are all doing what you can. And definitely a lot of Kuo Toa are being cut down here. Each of you who are fighting have probably cut down a few dozen yourselves, just over the last few hours. There are hundreds of dead Kuo Toa, just their bodies strewn out across the streets. Yet for every Kuo Toa that goes down, it seems like 5 more take their place. It's just an unstoppable wave. More than just the few hundred you guys had seen in the temple below the city. This is like they've called up the nearby nests as well. So at least a few thousand Kuo Toa, by the looks of it, being held off by a token guard of a couple hundred soldiers, if that. This is not a fighting force that can hold for long. But you're not trying to hold for long, you're just trying to hold for long enough. And that's mostly what's happening. There are unfortunately civilians that do not make it, but the casualties are lower than it would have been otherwise. The sun continues to climb up in the sky until it reaches its peak. And at that point, the guard seems mostly spent. The Kuo Toa are pressing against the iron gates themselves now as the last few people are trying to get through. And then all of you hear it. Horns ringing out across the entire city. But these are not the horns of the Kuo Toa. This sounds nothing like what the Kuo Toa have. Some of you recognize these horns, though. Kindness, you recognize them. Adaman, you know these horns, the sound of these horns very well. It sounds almost like dragon horns. Adaman and Kindness, you recognize the sound of the horns that are ringing throughout the streets as the battle cry of the Order of the North Wind. And, that's Adaman's people. And it's very much just like this scene here. As all of you can now look to the northeast, the gates by the city, by the sea, which none of you would be able to see the gates here, but you can all see the knights pouring in. White armor glistening as hundreds of knights on horseback ride through the streets, each of them bearing the sigil of the Order of the North Wind.